There's this one unspoken skill that most people who are very successful, have achieved all of their greatest dreams, who are living the life that they want, have all adopted. And it's not necessarily something that's surface level. It's not something people speak about. It is not something that is normalized. And I want to make a video on this because if you learn to master this skill, you will become the highest version of yourself. You will become successful. You will achieve anything that you want in your life. And especially, you will make everything work in your own favor. I would argue that most people don't have this skill and they never develop it in their life. And that is exactly why they stay stuck in a very victimized version of themselves. From a really young age, when I was 18, I felt like I was ahead of the majority of people. And this isn't a video to brag about myself or feel like I'm better than others. It's to help you see everything in your life as working in your favor. It's not about toxic positivity. It is not about gaslighting or manipulating yourself into the highest version of yourself. It is a very strategic way to approach your life that not only benefits you, but you also get to enjoy the reward of it. Not everyone in life grows from adversity. That's very obvious to me. And this is not about denial of negative experiences. It's all about perception, and it is about the way that you approach your life. Because in my opinion, not every single negative experience makes someone stronger and more resilient, because there are a lot of people who go through very hard experiences, who didn't necessarily have the odds in their favor growing up, who went through very unfavorable circumstances in their life, and they use it to victimize themselves. They use it as proof that they are not capable of building the life that they want, and they stay stuck in that version of themselves for pretty much the majority of their life. This is like 90% of the general public, whereas that 10%, they are using it in their favor, because the truth is we are not in control of the things that happen to us. We are not in control of negative experiences. We are only in control of the way that we perceive it and how we use it to level up in our life. I would say personally, growing up, I went through experiences that were not in my favor. I wouldn't say that the cards were necessarily dealt in my favor in life. And it honestly forced me to grow up way too fast. I became very responsible from a very young age. Although I'm very grateful for that, it has built the version of me that I am now, that has produced results in my life that most people would deem as very unrealistic to achieve. It also took for me to look in the mirror and realize that all of these negative experiences are things that I have no control over. I cannot change them, but I can change the way that I respond to it. And it's learning to use everything in your life in your favor, because the truth is, whether you are going through positive or negative experiences, everything is working in your favor. And I would argue that it's almost better to go through negative experiences, hard circumstances, because that is what is truly going to build a resilient, growth oriented version of yourself who is capable of building their dream life and living out everything that they've ever wanted, becoming the most successful version of yourself. I would go through everything that I've experienced my entire life again to really solidify this version of myself. And what I mean by that is that everything may not have been working in my favor, but I made sure that it did, because there was no way that I was going to victimize myself or stay stuck in my life. I learned to use everything as fuel, as motivation to really step into a better version of myself in my own life, and especially building results that my younger self used to pray to have. I was never going to let anything stop me from becoming that version of myself, from becoming successful, leveling up in my life, and especially living an extraordinary lifestyle. I wanted a life that was very different than the majority of people were living. And so I knew that required me to approach my life in a very different manner. And I am putting you on game right now. This is how you change your life. This is how you become the best version of yourself. This is how you achieve anything that you want. And you use every single experience that you go through in your life in your own favor to constantly level up as a person. As I took on a lot of responsibility at a very young age, it put a lot of pressure to really force perception shifts in my life. I started to look at life differently. I started to change the way that I viewed everything that was happening to me. And it allowed me to become very resilient, to persist through circumstances that I didn't desire to go through. And it always worked out in my favor in the end, no matter what it was, because I was able to change my mindset around it. No one chooses to go through hard experiences or negative aspects in life, but we are all in control of the way that we respond to it. We are all in control of our reactions, and especially the way that we perceive it. How are you perceiving things in your life? How are you responding to things? That is so important. in your own growth. That is how you level up as a person. It's all about learning to control your own perception of life. 'Cause let's be real. If we looked at it in the opposite perspective and we just allowed everything to hinder our own growth, to stop us from stepping into our own potential, all that does in life is just keep us depressed, miserable, and stuck in a version of ourselves that doesn't serve us anymore. What I'm trying to tell you is that nothing that happens in life is neutral. And there are people who use it as resentment, and there are people who use it as fuel, as motivation. It's basically that everyone who is very strong learn to extract meaning from very hard circumstances. It's not necessarily about intelligence or being smarter than other people. It is all about awareness. It is about being calculated as a person. When I learned to master the skill in my life, it started to put me ahead of a lot of people. I started to no longer relate to a lot of people because a lot of people just love to use experiences to just stay stuck in their life. They love to use it as an excuse to not evolve as a person. And I just cannot condone that. I can't support it. I don't ever want to be that person because that would mean that I'm not going to reach my potential in life. And I refuse to settle for a life that is the opposite of what I truly desire for myself. I learned to turn every negative experience into fuel for my own success in life. I was literally a full functioning adult by the age of 18, so I had no choice but to become very responsible. And people always ask me, like, how do you do it? How are you so independent? How do you handle all this at once? For one, I had no choice, but for two, what is the other option? I always saw it in that perspective. I felt like I was evolving faster than most people around me in a good way. It helped me develop a smarter version of myself, more self aware, more calculated, someone who approaches their life in a very intentional manner, has allowed me to create results in my life that I never really saw growing up, that a lot of people never showed me. It's all because of the way that I learned to perceive what I was going through in life. What I have learned, if you want to grow and evolve as a person, is that you can't really avoid pain in your life. You're going to go through hard circumstances. You're going to go through negative moments you do not desire to go through, but it's all about how you use it to develop a better version of yourself. A huge reason why some people just plateau in life. They don't expand, they stay very stuck, they victimize themselves, versus people who are constantly expanding, who are the inspiration for others. This doesn't mean that you're perfect either, because you're going to have moments where you want to use circumstances to stop you from reaching your potential in life. But as long as you always learn to take value from everything that you are going through as a person, it is always going to work out in your benefit. It is always going to favor you. Look at it in this perspective. If it's not really clicking for you yet about how to approach this, there are going to be certain circumstances that you continuously go through until you learn a lesson in your life. It basically serves as feedback. If you are constantly experiencing the same thing that you don't desire to be going through, you need to start looking at it in a new perspective. You need to be like, what is this trying to teach me? Who is this trying to build? And what parts of myself do I need to release in order to embrace this and use it to my own advantage? Circumstances will constantly repeat until you change your perspective of it. When you learn to change your perception of life, life kind of just stops happening to you and it starts working for you. A lot of this is just about embodiment. It's learning to approach your life in a different way. If you want to grow, if you want to experience a life that most people don't actually get to, it requires you to be a different version of yourself. It requires you to be more self-aware, to perceive things in a different manner than most people would. I've always been very intuitive and very self-aware, and it's always worked out in my favor. And that doesn't mean that I don't go through things that I don't want to go through. Of course I do. I have things happen all the time to me that I'm like, why is this happening to me? But I just have to use it as a lesson. I have to use it as feedback to grow and evolve as a person. It's honestly just learning to change the way that you see your life, or that you just see life in general. I promise you, if you develop this skill in your life, you will win no matter what. You will be that person that people are constantly inspired by. They're like, oh my gosh, how does she always receive everything that she wants? How is she always so favored? It's not about luck at all. It is about discernment and perception and just the way that you respond to life in general. How are you reacting to everything that is going on around you? People who are very successful and have articulated a life that you desire to have aren't necessarily lucky. They didn't have everything working in their favor. They just used everything to work in their favor. Honestly, there are a lot of successful people who went through the most in life, but you would never be able to tell. And that's something I always said is like, I never want people to be able to see what I've gone through in my life by the way that I present myself. It's also a huge aspect of this. The way that you present yourself and appear in your own life, how other people perceive you, is a huge indicator of how successful that you will be. Because these people, they handle themselves in a different manner. Their presence is just very telling overall. And it's not that they can hide what they've gone through. They just know that everything is building the highest version of themselves, and they make sure that it always benefits them, that it always allows them to constantly win in life. You can become that person too. It's just really about the way that you perceive life, how you're approaching your life, and the meaning that you give to circumstances that are happening to you. Because life is not against you. You can win, you can achieve whatever you want, you can become the version of yourself that you are envisioning in your mind. And it all comes down to discernment and perception. That's literally it. That's how you grow, that's how you evolve as a person. That is how you constantly level up. It's not that you avoid circumstances. It's not that you completely stop going through pain or negative things. It's just about how you respond to it. It's how you react to that happening to you. You are capable of achieving the life that you want, but you need to allow your own growth and self-awareness and your intuition to catch up to that version of yourself by changing your mindset, by developing a new perspective of life. It's not about toxic positivity. It's not about forcing yourself to be positive. It is just learning to look at every single circumstance and say, oh, what is this trying to teach me? What version of myself is this trying to build for me so that I can produce the results that I want in my life? As you know, I am on a journey of always growing, always expanding as a person, and just sharing my experiences with you so that you can level up as well and reach your potential. So if you want to step into the version of yourself that you know you are capable of becoming, then I will see you in the next video.